Every spring, millions of gardeners repeat the same ritual. They buy seeds, they prepare soil, they plant spinach, kale, lettuce, annual crops that germinate, grow, produce for a few weeks, and then bolt, turn bitter, and die. The cycle resets the following year. More seeds, more soil preparation, more planting, more waiting. The modern vegetable garden is built on the assumption that food plants are temporary, that they must be replanted, that the relationship between grower and plant lasts one season at most. But there is a plant, a member of the same family as kale, cabbage, and broccoli, that does not follow this pattern. It does not die after one season. It does not bolt in summer heat. It grows upward year after year, producing harvestable leaves continuously for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years or more from a single planting. It is called the purple tree collard. It can outproduce spinach and kale per square foot over time, not because it grows faster, but because it never stops. While annual greens are replanted, regerminated, and re-established season after season, this plant simply continues. It produces through winter. It sweetens after frost. It asks almost nothing once established. It is almost never sold as seed. It cannot be found in most nurseries. It does not appear in any commercial seed catalogue from any major supplier. The question is not whether this plant works. Thousands of gardeners already grow it. The question is why a food plant this productive, this resilient, this low maintenance exists almost entirely outside the system that determines what the rest of the world eats. The brassica family is one of the oldest cultivated plant groups on Earth. Humans have been selecting, breeding, and consuming plants from this family for thousands of years. Cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, kohlrabi, all of these are descendants of a single wild ancestor, a scraggly coastal plant that grew along the shores of the Mediterranean and the Atlantic coast of Europe. The diversity is staggering. From one species, human selection produced vegetables that look nothing alike. The tight head of a cabbage, the flowering stalk of broccoli, the swollen stem of kohlrabi. Each form represents a different direction of breeding, a different trait emphasized over centuries. But most of these breeding directions shared one assumption. The plant would be annual, it would be planted, harvested, and cleared. The field would be reset for the next crop. The cycle would repeat. This assumption was not universal. In parts of the British Isles, farmers maintained perennial varieties of brassicas that behaved differently. These plants were not cleared after one season. They grew upward, developing woody stems over time, producing leaves continuously rather than forming heads or bolts. They were sometimes called tree cabbages or walking stick cabbages, the latter because the dried stems could be cut and used as walking sticks. The Channel Island of Jersey was particularly known for this. Jersey cabbage, a tall perennial variety, grew to heights of 8 or 10 feet. The stems were harvested for wood. The leaves were harvested for food. The plant lived for years. These were not curiosities. They were functional food plants maintained by communities that valued persistence over productivity in any single season. The logic was different from modern agriculture. The goal was not maximum harvest in minimum time. The goal was reliable food, year after year, with minimum replanting. Similar traditions existed elsewhere. In parts of Portugal, perennial brassicas were maintained in kitchen gardens. In equatorial Africa, perennial forms of collard greens, the family to which this plant belongs, were grown as permanent fixtures in household food production. In the American South, collard greens became a staple crop, though the varieties that became dominant were annual or biennial rather than perennial. The perennial forms persisted in the margins. They were passed between gardeners. They were maintained by families who understood their value. They were not part of the commercial seed trade. They were not sold in catalogues. They existed in a parallel system, informal, local, invisible to the infrastructure that determines what most people grow. The specific variety that concerns us here, the purple-stemmed, tree-forming collard, appears to have been maintained primarily along the west coast of the United States and in parts of the United Kingdom. Its exact origin is unclear. It may descend from the perennial brassicas of the Channel Islands. It may have African roots, brought to America through the long and painful history that carried so many food traditions across the Atlantic. What is clear is that it was passed from gardener to gardener, not from catalogue to customer. The plant was shared as cuttings, sections of stem rooted in soil and given to neighbors, friends, fellow growers. This method of propagation defined the plant's relationship to the world. It moved through networks of trust, not networks of commerce, and that distinction would determine everything about its visibility. The modern seed industry is built on annuals. This is not a conspiracy. It is a business model. Seed companies generate revenue when gardeners purchase seeds. If a gardener buys spinach seeds in April, the spinach bolts in July, and the gardener needs more spinach seeds the following April. The cycle generates a recurring customer. The relationship between company and gardener resets every season. A plant that lives for a decade does not generate recurring purchases. A plant that is propagated from cuttings that can be cloned endlessly by snipping a branch and sticking it in soil generates no purchases at all. The initial acquisition might involve buying one plant. After that, the gardener can produce unlimited new plants from the original. They can share with neighbors. They can fill an entire garden. They can supply a community. From the perspective of a seed company, this is not a product. This is a leak in the revenue model. The absence from seed catalogues is therefore not surprising. It is logical. Seed companies sell seeds. This plant does not reliably produce viable seeds, a trait that may be a consequence of its perennial genetics, its hybrid origins, or its long history of vegetative propagation. The seeds, when they occur, often do not breed true. The cuttings do. The system is built to distribute annual seeds. This plant does not produce useful seeds. The system has no mechanism for distributing it. The second problem is standardization. Commercial agriculture requires uniformity. The heads of broccoli in a grocery store must be approximately the same size, the same color, the same weight. The bags of spinach must contain leaves of predictable shape and texture. The supply chain, from farm to processor to distributor to retailer, assumes consistency. This plant is not consistent. Each cutting-grown specimen varies slightly from the others. The purple coloration ranges from deep violet to faint lavender. The leaf shape shifts with growing conditions. The plant's height, branching pattern, and productivity depend on climate, soil, and management. It cannot be standardized in the way that commercial crops demand. For a home gardener, this variation is irrelevant. A leaf is a leaf. It tastes good. It nourishes. The color is beautiful. The variation is part of the character. For a supply chain that requires predictability, the variation is disqualifying. The third problem is harvest. Annual greens are harvested all at once. A field of spinach is cut, bundled, washed, and shipped. The timing is controlled, the volume is planned, the logistics are efficient. This plant produces leaves continuously, a few at a time, over months and years. Outer leaves are picked while inner leaves continue growing. The harvest is ongoing, not episodic. This is perfect for a household. It is impossible for an industrial operation. No harvesting machine is designed for a plant that is picked leaf by leaf over a period of years. No supply chain is built for a product that arrives in small, continuous quantities rather than large, scheduled batches. The fourth problem is climate. The plant thrives in mild climates. The west coast of the United States, parts of the United Kingdom, Mediterranean zones, coastal areas with moderate temperatures. It tolerates frost and becomes sweeter after cold exposure, but prolonged hard freezes can damage or kill it. It does not perform well in the extreme cold of northern winters or the extreme heat of southern summers without shade and water. This limits its geographic range. It cannot be the universal crop that wheat or rice became. It is regional. It is specific. It fits certain conditions and not others. None of these limitations are the plant's fault. The plant does exactly what it evolved to do. It grows. It produces. It persists. It does not die on schedule. It does not cooperate with systems designed to sell new seeds every spring. The system was not built for permanent food plants. The system was built for planned obsolescence in the garden, and a plant that refuses to become obsolete has no place in that system. The nutritional profile, when measured, aligns closely with its better-known relatives. This plant is a brassica. It contains what brassicas contain, and brassicas are among the most nutrient-dense vegetable families measured. Vitamin K is abundant. A single serving provides more than the daily recommended intake. This is consistent with kale, collards, and other dark leafy greens in the same family. Vitamin K is essential for blood clotting and bone metabolism. Most adults in the Western world do not consume enough of it. Vitamin C is present in substantial quantities. Calcium levels are notable, higher than many commonly consumed vegetables, and significant for populations that avoid or cannot tolerate dairy. Folate, fiber, and antioxidant compounds round out the profile. The antioxidant content is relevant to the purple coloration. The pigments that produce the purple stems and veins are anthocyanins, the same class of compounds found in blueberries, red cabbage, and purple grapes. Anthocyanins are among the most studied plant antioxidants. Their concentration in this plant is visible. The deeper the purple, the more anthocyanin the tissue contains, a plant that wears its antioxidant content on its surface. But the nutritional profile is not what distinguishes this plant from spinach or kale. The nutrients are comparable. What distinguishes it is the math. Consider productivity over time. A planting of spinach produces harvestable leaves for approximately 4 to 6 weeks before bolting. The gardener then removes the plants, prepares the soil, and replants, perhaps getting 2 or 3 plantings per year in favorable climates. Each planting requires seeds, soil preparation, watering during establishment, and the weeks of growth before harvest begins. This plant produces harvestable leaves every week, year-round, in mild climates. There is no bolting, there is no replanting, there is no re-establishment period. The plant is simply there, producing continuously. Over the course of a single year, the cumulative leaf production from one established plant can exceed what multiple successive spinach plantings yield from the same space. Over 5 years, the comparison becomes overwhelming. Over 10 years, it is not a comparison at all. It is a different category. The labor calculation follows the same logic. Growing annual greens requires repeated cycles of soil preparation, planting, watering, thinning, harvesting, and clearing. Each cycle demands hours of work. The total labor investment over a decade of annual vegetable gardening is substantial. This plant requires planting once. After establishment, the labor is limited to periodic harvesting of outer leaves and occasional maintenance, perhaps staking as the plant grows tall, perhaps cutting back if it becomes unwieldy. The total labor investment over a decade is a fraction of what annual greens demand. For subsistence gardeners, for food bank gardens, for community growing projects, for anyone trying to produce maximum nutrition with minimum ongoing effort, this calculus matters. The drought tolerance adds another dimension. Once established, the root system of this plant reaches deep into the soil. The perennial structure stores energy and moisture in ways that annual seedlings cannot. During dry periods when spinach wilts and lettuce turns bitter, this plant continues producing. It may slow its growth, it may produce smaller leaves, but it does not die and require replacement. In a warming climate with increasing water uncertainty, a food plant that survives drought without replanting has obvious value. The propagation method, often framed as a limitation, is in practical terms an advantage. A a single established plant can produce dozens of cuttings per year. Each cutting, rooted in soil or water, becomes a new plant genetically identical to the parent. The process requires no special equipment, a sharp knife, a container of moist soil or water, and patience. Within weeks, the cutting develops roots. Within months, it is producing leaves. This means that one gardener with one plant can supply an entire neighborhood. The plant multiplies through community, not commerce. The distribution network is human relationship, not supply chain. Some growers have noted that this characteristic, the ability to share indefinitely from a single source, makes the plant function more like a commons than a commodity. It belongs to whoever grows it. It spreads through generosity. It cannot be artificially scarce because anyone who has it can make more. The permaculture community recognized this early. Food forest designers value this plant for its perennial production, its vertical growth habit, its compatibility with understory planting, and its ability to function as a permanent component of a designed food system. In permaculture, annual crops are a compromise. Perennials are the goal. A plant that produces nutritious greens year after year, requiring minimal input, fitting into a layered growing system, this is not a curiosity. This is a cornerstone. The plant is called the purple tree collard. It grows along the west coast of the United States, from Southern California to the Pacific Northwest. It grows in parts of the United Kingdom, in Portugal, in Mediterranean climates where winters are mild and summers are not extreme. It grows in backyards, in community gardens, in food forests, and along the fences of people who learned about it from a neighbor who learned about it from a friend. The plant is unmistakable once you know what to look for. It grows upward on a single stem or a few branches, reaching 4, 5, sometimes 8 feet tall over several years. The stem becomes woody with age, thick and sturdy, developing the tree-like structure that gives it its name. The leaves are large, broad, blue-green, with purple veins and stems. The purple deepens in cold weather. After frost, the leaves become notably sweeter, the plant converting starch to sugar as a cold protection mechanism. The leaves are harvested from the outside in. Outer leaves are picked while inner leaves continue growing. The plant responds to harvest by producing more growth. Picking encourages productivity. Neglect leads to legginess and reduced leaf production. The plant rewards attention, but it does not punish absence. For those who wish to grow it, the path does not begin at a seed catalogue. It begins with a cutting. A branch, 6 to 8 inches long, stripped of its lower leaves and placed in moist soil or a jar of water. Roots appear within 2 to 4 weeks. The rooted cutting is planted in well-drained soil with reasonable sun. In mild climates, it establishes within a season and begins producing harvestable leaves within months. The plant prefers full sun but tolerates partial shade. It prefers regular watering but survives drought once established. It prefers rich soil but grows in poor conditions. It is not fussy. It is a brassica, the same family that includes some of the toughest, most adaptable food plants humans have ever cultivated. Finding cuttings requires entering the informal network that sustains this plant. Online gardening forums, permaculture communities, local plant swaps, and social media groups dedicated to perennial vegetables are the primary channels. Some small nurseries sell rooted cuttings during the growing season. The availability is limited, but not impossible. The plant exists because people chose to share it. This is perhaps the most significant thing about it. In a food system dominated by corporations, by intellectual property, by seeds engineered to produce plants that cannot reproduce themselves, this plant moves through the world the old way. Hand to hand, garden to garden, neighbor to neighbor. It cannot be owned. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be made artificially scarce. Anyone who has one plant can supply their community. The economics that make it invisible to the commercial system are the same economics that make it available to anyone willing to look. The plant does not produce in the way that industrial agriculture measures production. It does not yield a single massive harvest. It does not fill a truck or a warehouse or a shipping container. It produces the way a household needs production, a few leaves today, a few leaves tomorrow, continuously for years, from a single planting that cost nothing or close to nothing to establish. It stands in the garden like a quiet argument against the assumption that food must be replanted every spring. It grows taller each year, its purple stems darkening, its leaves broadening, its root system deepening into soil that it improves rather than depletes. The plant does not advertise. It does not appear in television commercials or on grocery shelves. It does not have a marketing budget or a brand identity or a supply chain. It has something older than any of those things. It has the people who grow it. And they share. They have always shared. That is how the plant survives. That is how the plant spreads. That is how a food source this productive, this nutritious, this persistent exists entirely outside the system that claims to feed the world. The plant is in someone's garden right now, within miles of wherever you are, if you live in the right climate. It is producing leaves at this moment. It produced leaves yesterday. It will produce leaves tomorrow. It does not need the system. The system increasingly may need it. But the plant is patient. It grows where it is planted. It stays as long as it is wanted. And it shares itself with anyone who asks.